Newsday BBC World Service. President Joe Biden has said US combat forces will leave Iraq by the end of this year, though troops will continue to train and advise the Iraqi military. The announcement came after Mr. Biden held talks with Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Hamidi at the White House. There are currently 2,500 US troops in Iraq helping local forces counter what remains of the Islamic State group. Well, for more, I've been speaking to Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis, a military expert at Defence Priorities. And for 21 years, he served in the US Army in Iraq and Afghanistan. Given the fact, though, that there still is a risk for the Iraqi government on the ground and wider for America and the rest of the world geopolitically, is it not important, as President Biden said, for those troops to remain, to gather intelligence and to help with the training of Iraqi troops?
Well, I have a bit of a different viewpoint on that. I actually am pretty outspoken that those troops need to be completely withdrawn, not just some of them, but all of them, because the reason that they were sent there in the beginning during the Obama administration in 2014 was to help fight ISIS in Iraq, because ISIS had taken substantial portions of Iraqi territory, and their whole 4 divisions actually just melted away in the face of the ISIS onslaught. When President Trump came on board, he said his objective was to take away all of the ISIS territory. Well, that was done in 2017, or depending on how you want to count it, early 2019 at the latest. So at that time, the troops should have come home, because now they're kind of forced in search of a mission, and that's not good for America. It's not even that good for Iraq, because it keeps them dependent on the United States instead of developing their own capacity.
You say force in search of a mission, but surely maybe the mission has shifted somewhat. We've seen what's happened in Afghanistan with foreign troops pulling out and the resurgence of the Taliban, and that does have a knock-on effect for the stability of the region and therefore, as I mentioned before, the sort of wider geopolitical situation.
Well, there's absolutely no reason to think that that would happen. In fact, the situations are dramatically different. The Afghan troops are definitely not capable. They have not benefited from the training we gave. In Iraq, it's a different situation. As their prime minister emphatically said on the 25th, they are fighting their battles right now. And the ISIS is little more than a shadowy group right now. And so the situation is very different in that regard. American military troops should not be involved in the diplomatic part of the governance. I mean, that's where things fell apart in 2011, when the military troops left, and then the government in Baghdad with Maliki in charge just totally mismanaged the process. And that's what actually resulted in the rise of ISIS, not the American withdrawal, but the mismanagement by the Iraqis. And the bottom line, as hard as it may sound, each country has to be responsible for their own security, and they have to be responsible for their own governance. And if they're not doing a good job, then protests and those kinds of things are going to come up. But our military presence there is not going to make Iraq a more governable place for their political institutions.
There would also be the allegation, though, of a complete withdrawal would seem that America was walking away from a fire that it in part lit.
Well, I say, because I'm asked that a lot, and the truth of the matter is we have invested almost 2 full decades in both Iraq and Afghanistan, and they just haven't taken advantage of it. And at this point, it doesn't look like they're going to, and it's a bad investment on our part as the United States to continue sacrificing our blood and treasure when somebody's not getting it.
Interesting to know what you think about that at BBC World Service on social media, Facebook, Twitter. That is Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis, military expert at Defence Priorities. He himself spent 21 years serving in the US Army in Iraq and Afghanistan.